Right, we have to start by talking about Chelsea, Joe. Another interesting week, Matisse. Sacking Liam Rosenior after just 3 months in charge. That follows a 5th loss in 5 games without scoring in any of those. So firstly, give us your reaction when you heard the news.
I wasn't too surprised, especially after the Brighton game. That performance, that result, and then obviously it's compounded with the other previous results before it. The lack of goals in the league since Villa Park, the constant capitulations and batterings. It was only really going one way, but it felt like his post-match interview is the reason why he got sacked, is the way that he spoke about the players after, threw them under the bus a little bit. It wasn't, in my opinion, predicated on results. I think if it was, then Champions League football was gone a long time ago or gone a few weeks ago. That would have been the time to maybe pull the trigger. So I think it's mainly seen the same with Maresca. I think once you start to lose your head in that position and you start to really move quite erratic, that's when you're most vulnerable to losing your job.
Clive, what did you make of the decision? And what do you make of sort of the direction that Chelsea are going in, looking at it from the outside?
From the outside, it obviously is a Blue Co employer, and they had him at Strasbourg and they bring him in. Young coach, we all probably knew he's probably over-promoted a little bit too quickly. So when you have somebody that's young as part of your organisation, you protect them with people with experience around them. He's got a young team. He hasn't got any sort of experienced coaches around him. You know, if you just think about what's happening around when Arteta came in, he had Steve Round in his 50s, an old guy, to help him. You know, and so it's really... It's disappointing
like
from his perspective.
Steve Holland, people like that as well.
Took the words out of mouth. And basically, if you have someone, you have to protect his career. And they haven't protected his career, just brought him into a really tough situation as a young coach, a young, bright coach with good rep, and said, go on then, fix this lot. And I think that's really disappointing from an ownership point of view, and I know we'll get onto that. The ownership is a problem, and that's going to maybe dictate who they can get going forward.
Where are you at on this ownership then? Because do you think the spotlight needs to be shone upstairs a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. They're the main culprits. You know, they're the consistent running theme throughout all of these hiring and firings. I was at the protest last week, really good numbers. Blue Co have to take full responsibility and accountability for what's going on, and they haven't, in my opinion. When you look at, you know, what you said about the manager, you're spot on. They have been naive to think that in mid-season, no pre-season especially, you can just throw him into that scenario and situation when, you know, Champions League football at the time was still on the line, two-legged tie against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup, you know, Premier League trying to chase Champions League, which is massive for the finances, which we know. There's so much pressure, and they haven't accounted for any of that. But this has been a long time coming for Blue Co, because off the pitch, on the pitch, you look at commercially front of shirt sponsorships, when you look at the way that they've moved with staff hiring and firing behind the scenes, key figures leaving the club in the academy. They just haven't had any respect for the intangibles, building a squad as well, in terms of the experience and know-how and the top-level quality that is required at this level to compete. Mixing in too many young players, and what you said about the manager is very similar with the players. There's a lot of talented young players at Chelsea, but they don't have, you know, Kuzanov has a Mark Gurhey next to him, Bernardo Silva's in there with an O'Reilly. You've got the balance, you've got the shoulder to kind of lean on in the training ground, and the standards that are in the disciplines.
Like when you had Thiago Silva there, the impact he made on and off the pitch.
Exactly. You know, when Reece James was coming through, we had Aspilicueta, Tammy Abraham, Olivier Giroud. It's not even just about having world-class players, but it's about having players that they've been there and done it. They've understood the pressures, and they've worked with top managers, and they just know the standard and the level that we should be playing at and operating at.
What do you make of that playing squad, Clive? Because you look at it, it's been assembled by Blue Co quite heavily now, and there's been plenty of different managers that have had a go at it. So where are you at on it?
Yeah, some of the talent they have is really, really good. I mean, I like some of them on YouTube. I don't want to buy all of them for my club to try to win a league or try to go to Europe. I just think when you have a club like this, when you're a fan, you look at it from the top down. So you have your ownership, you have your executives, you have your coaches, your players and your fans. And if they're aligned with what you're trying to do, that's great. So you have your ownership, split ownership there already.
Yeah.
You go to your executives, you've got 5 sporting directors. How can you be aligned? Then you go down to the multiple coaches that are changing over. And then you go to a playing squad where they bought something like 23 players between the age of 18 and 20, which means they're betting on youth.
Yeah.
Now, youth development is a skill in itself. None of us can predict it, right? And so you've now got that amount of spend on players you're not quite sure are going to make it, and you give that to a young manager and say, fix that, make them better. And I just think it's just a recipe for disaster. And I feel, I'm an Arsenal man, right? So I say this with hesitation. I feel sorry for the Chelsea fans because their club has been destroyed from a structural point of view, and now it's manifests itself on the pitch. So that's where it is.
Do you feel like that's been destroyed?
It has, yeah, because it never had to get to this level. You look at the amount of money that they've spent. You know, they could have apportioned that money out a lot more carefully, a lot more tactically, and they could have taken their time. And this all started from when they didn't appoint a sporting director in the first summer when Todd Bowley was purchasing players on behalf of the club.
Yeah.
You just don't do that. It's not how you run an organisation. You look at Lewis Campos, you look at Tiki at Man City, you look at, you know, sporting directors. They go in there, they set the precedent, they set the expectations, they hire the manager that is in line with, you know, with their identity, philosophy, mythology, all of these things. So it all translates to the pitch. But that only happens when winning is first and foremost the priority. And I don't think Blue Coat's first and foremost priority is winning on the football pitch. And I think they've shown that in the decisions that they've made. And then, yeah, off the pitch. So, I mean, Chelsea, if they don't make Champions League for the third year in 4 under this ownership, that's quite damning as well.
Yeah, and it is going to be a big decision as to who this
absolutely.
next manager is. We can have a look at the current bookmakers' favourites. Here are the odds and the names involved. The current leading candidate, according to the bookmakers, Felipe Luis, who of course left Flamengo. He used to play for Chelsea. You've got Antonio Areola in there. Obviously, Oli Glasner in there. Xavi Hernandez, Frank Lampard, Unai Emery. So some big names in there. But, you know, quite a varied stack of candidates.
I was just about to say, it's a real variety, isn't it? A real range of management types and experience in there as well. So that's what the bookmakers think in terms of who's likely to get the job. But we want to know what you think, Matisse.
Yeah.
So the Saturday Social whiteboard is out. There's a number 1 to 5. We've asked you to put together your dream 5-person shortlist of managers if you were in charge of the club. So you're playing the role of the sporting director.
Yeah.
Who would you pick? We're going to go in reverse order, culminating in who your dream next Chelsea permanent manager will be. So let's start with number 5, mate.
So I've gone with as realistic as I can to start with, and then we'll go from there as we go up. Obviously, Cesc Fabregas is incredibly intelligent. I think he's shown that at Como so far. He's obviously got them promoted. He's now challenging and going for Champions League football. This is, for me, the cap ceiling of what we can attain with the current structure that is implemented. And even that would be quite far-fetched. I think Fabregas would want a lot of things changed, rightly so, from a sporting director standpoint, from a recruitment standpoint, in terms of the balance. But he's a front-footed, forward-thinking manager, attack-minded, and most importantly, I think, because of his connection with the club, playing for the club, I think the fans would buy in quite quickly. And his playing career speaks for itself. So I think a lot of the players that are rumoured to maybe be questioning whether they should stay or go, in terms of Cucurella, Enzo Fernandez. There's been talk about Cole Palmer, although he kind of put that talk down. When someone like him comes in, I think there's a little bit of respect there for what he's done in the game, and then that helps keep some players on side.
Clive, what are your thoughts on Fabregas? I mean, the Como story is an interesting one, isn't it? 5th in Serie A. He's actually won Coach of the Month award 3 times this season. When you think of the other managers that are managing in that league, but in terms of the fit for Chelsea, we know he's got allegiance to Chelsea, as he has with your club, Arsenal as well. Yeah. Could you see that happening or not?
I can see him on the list, and I'm glad you've got him on your list. But I think, similar to Rosenior, a young, bright coach, it doesn't really matter how young and bright you are. If you're going into a structure that doesn't protect you, then you're in a bit of trouble. And we've seen Xabi Alonso going to Madrid, again, a bright coach, won the league at Leverkusen, and then he goes to Madrid and the environment takes him out. And I think that's the risk there. If you're going for the interview at Chelsea, you're going to be saying, what are you selling me? What is the direction? Can I buy a player over 23? Am I allowed to? You know, these are questions you have to ask. And so whoever it is, it comes down to organisation, its direction. And so, yeah, he's a top guy and he's the next big thing. We all know that.
Interesting to see where he does go next. As I say, Coach of the Month 3 times there, 5th in Serie A. It's interesting to see what is next for Cesc. But he is your 5th choice.
Other side.
Ooh, other side.
Yeah.
There we go.
Keep
it in the middle.
Next up.
So number 4.
So slowly again, working our way up slowly. Xabi Alonso done the treble by Leverkusen.
Yeah.
He did manage Real Madrid for a very short stint. I never felt like necessarily the egos and the personalities that he was going to be walking into there. Especially the balance of that team. We saw Poch struggle with, Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. I thought the same struggle was going to be there with Mbappe and Vini at Real Madrid. But he's won things. So I think that's why he has to be slightly ahead of Cesc Fabregas, who's obviously managed at a big club before. So he understands the expectations, the standard. But then again, his playing career kind of gives him that little bit of buy-in with the players as well. And I just feel like that Real Madrid experience will have helped him in his next job. He would have learned a lot from that time, even though it was quite short. And hopefully, again, anybody that I'm putting on this list is going to come in and give Blueco a run for their money in terms of challenging the existing infrastructure and the situation at hand, which is what we need. There's no one on here that's going to fit in to what we're doing currently, because what we're doing currently is wrong.
Yeah, there's a lot of good points you make, but surely if he's linked with any Premier League club, he's more likely to be a future Liverpool manager than he is a future Chelsea manager, would you think?
I would think so. But again, he has a strong system about him. From Leverkusen, he went to Madrid, they weren't having that system. They weren't having his style of coaching. I actually think he could be suited to a Chelsea because he can implement something they can build from. But, you know, I think it'll be a challenge for him. But again, we come back to the same point. What are Chelsea selling? You know, what are they selling to you? And but Liverpool seem to be staying with Klopp. And I think there's people starting to realise that stability is not the worst thing in the world. You know, and by staying with Klopp, giving him more time, making sure he has the right recruitment around him. So maybe he won't get to Liverpool as quickly as he hoped he would.
Okay, stick him down.
Stick him up. And then this is where, like we said, just going to predicate this, guys. This is Matisse's list. Okay? So these next three names that are about to come out.
Not Joe and I list. Just like to say that.
Let's see at number 3 who your third dream appointment is.
The third name is Diego Simeone. And this was a late change, but Diego Simeone got added onto this list. Now, there'll be people listening to this, they'll be gasping. They'll be choking on their coffees. You know what I mean? Like, how could you mention? This is the standard of manager that Chelsea should be linked with. This is the standard of manager that Chelsea should be going after. The only reason why this name stands out as crazy is because of where the ownership have taken us to the point where we can't attract said manager of this quality. But this is the most Chelsea-coded manager that has not managed Chelsea.
It's true.
In terms of the footballing principles, the identity, the way that he goes about his business. Chelsea have obviously tried to go down a really positional play, you know, kind of attractive brand of football over the last few years. Maybe since Sarri, you could kind of pinpoint it from there. And then Conte obviously leaving. But Chelsea's identity is exactly what this man is, which is pragmatic, which is results-driven, winning football. And I feel like that kind of us versus the world, you know, the all-black suit, I think it would resonate with the Stamford Bridge crowd so much.
Highest paid manager in world football by a distance.
By a distance.
And doesn't speak English. Never managed the Clive, thoughts?
Could learn it.
Well,
And the longevity aspects as well. Longevity aspect of how long he's been there.
I can see why you picked him, right? Because that he suits what I call old Chelsea.
Yeah.
That's what they used to do. Get the biggest, ugliest guy and get him in to rattle cages. But they used to have a big dressing room. I mean, when they won the Champions League in 2012, the dressing room won that on their own, right? Because Di Matteo came in and he was just happy to be there. And the dressing room said, right, we'll win this. They haven't got that dressing room today. And so you almost need to build those characters to give him something to manage, you know? So, but that's old Chelsea. And I think for the guys in their barbers and their flat caps at Stamford Bridge, I think they'll love that idea, definitely.
Okay.
Stick it down, because we want to get to the next two. So these, once again, just to reiterate, this is Matisse's choices. Number 2, your second ideal manager candidate, Zinedine Zidane.
Yep.
Okay.
Three-time Champions League winner. 2-time La Liga winner.
On the verge of joining.
But we're not debating that. The point is, obviously, there is from very credible sources a verbal agreement in place for him to be the next French national team coach after the World Cup. Verbal agreement, we believe, after the day.
There was a verbal agreement with Willian to join Tottenham. There was a verbal agreement. There was always verbal agreements. But what did we do? We swooped in there and we stole and we took over. And for me, again, this is the type of appointment that kind of, I'm not saying it solves everything and it fixes everything, but this is the type of manager that comes in and puts you right back on a pedestal and it says, yo, we're back in business, guys. In terms of the transfer market, even if you don't make Europe, you can attract anybody with Zinedine Zidane at the helm.
Hang on, but you're saying, we're not disputing Zinedine Zidane, but you're saying that if Chelsea had an offer, despite that verbal agreement with France, there'd be a chance that he'd think of Chelsea over France? Is that what you're...
I'm not saying this is remotely possible. It's not. But this is a dream.
Right.
Okay.
You asked me for dreams,
Yeah,
I'm selling you dreams. This is dreams today.
Clive, any words on that?
Don't throw to me, mate. I think
This is dreams.
on the others, I could see why. On that one, it's just like you've gone big.
I've gone too far.
You've gone big, and I just don't see the mix and the fit. I could just about see it for Diego Simeone, but for that one, Matisse, I wish you had told me before.
literally.
We were surprised.
The thing is, you think that one's heavy hitter.
Yeah.
Put him up. This next one, I think people will literally be turning their televisions off.
I'm literally just getting more extreme as time goes on.
But this is to clarify your dream next permanent Chelsea manager. Can you reveal the magnet, please?
Jurgen Klopp.
Go on, go on. Explain.
Again, we're ticking all boxes here in terms of Premier League experience. You mentioned me Areola before we started. It's a title winner. It's a Champions League winner.
Yeah.
This is someone who understands football at all levels.
He has said he'd never manage another English club, though.
Again, money talks. We got to start having uncomfortable conversation, guys. You got to start ringing phones, ringing numbers, and you got to start making things happen. And again, this is someone that won't stand for what we're currently doing. But that's exactly what we need. We need someone that's going to come in and he's going to say, you guys are not running this club correctly. We need people that actually understand football and have been about the block and have been at top clubs and understand how top institutions work. The guys that I'm suggesting, they're not going to fit into Blue Co's model. They're not going to put up with them walking into change rooms at the end of games or signing, the sick 21-year-old on the trot. They're going to want balance. They're going to want players that come in that have been about and that have won things and have going to give experience and kind of represent the manager on the pitch. But that is how you get back to the top level, is by balancing out this squad, bringing in a manager who's going to bring in his own coaching staff that are going to be qualified and of the level required. He's going to ask for a new director. That is the level of revamp and overhaul that Chelsea actually need. And these are the managers that are going to bring it. The managers that are realistic, that were on the list that you pointed out earlier, they're not going to ask for these wholesale changes because they're coming from clubs maybe like a Crystal Palace or a Bournemouth, and they're not going to, for me, have that power and that weight behind them to make those demands. So you have to go with these level of names to get change.
Clive,
which won't happen.
Jurgen Klopp to Chelsea, thoughts?
Well, I think the thinking is almost more important than the name. What he's really after is a CEO coach, somebody that can change the organisation. So he's now saying, I don't really trust the leadership here. So I need a coach who can actually not just fix the team, but fix the leadership as well. And strong enough to say, I want this sporting director to go and my ones to come in.
Yeah.
So you're looking for a complete revamp of the org, aren't you, really, by putting that name there. So whether that name is the right one, but it's a CEO coach you're after, and that tells you where the problem really is.
Yeah, interesting. So there we go. There is confirmation we can see on the board now of Matisse's top 5 managerial candidates for the next Chelsea job. So he's gone with Jurgen Klopp as his dream Chelsea manager. Let us know what you think of that at home.